You've just hit the nail on the head on 2 points. The first of all, most of us avoid finally feeling the grief, the tragedy of that little self, right? Of the place that people call the inner child, that is still hoping to be loved by that parent that at the time when we were actual children didn't, when that person on the other side could have changed and they didn't. To cope with the situation where that's our only option, we assume a false sense of responsibility, a false sense of connection, that something about us influences how much they decide to transform inside their world. And instead of giving up this idea that we are responsible for them and that they are the only person that can love us, we keep that as part of our identity, and we start assuming that, oh, it's probably because they couldn't change, so let me find somebody else who could. And we repeat the pattern. The problem with assuming that somebody else can't change, and I'm not saying becoming at peace with somebody who isn't changing. Maybe it's too hard for them, maybe their brain's not working. But in general, when we assume something about the world, and this is what the consciousness work is all about, there's a part of us that assumes that about who we are. If we are of them and they are unchangeable, or if they are bad, even if we're not conscious of it, we're holding on to that same reality here. So in order to cope with that situation in the past, like I said, you start thinking, well, if I was lovable enough, if they could just see me, if they could just recognize me, or if I could just do all this inner work, then they would transform. Still playing into that old game where there's somebody who needs to be influenced in some way, and you need something from them, and if you can melt this ice, then you'll get what you need. After we allow ourselves to grieve, right, to experience that sadness, and to give up control, say, I have absolutely no influence over whether you decide to own up to your mistakes, to whether you decide to get healthy or to stop using or change in some way. You actually open yourself up to something that can create change in your world, except that change is not going to be created because of you to serve your conditioned self. It's going to be created by extension, or as a natural consequence of you being transformed. This is what I've seen in my own life, and this is why I wrote this book, and this is why it's called Transforming Reality, because stuff does change when we stop trying to get it to change for our own sake. And when we shed all of the conditioning and start changing ourselves, we become this beacon of light and hope for people, and people who are ready, who are at the point where they want to take that torch, or they want to start doing the inner work. They'll see it. They will see that it's a possibility. You will be an inspiration. You will be a different surface that they bounce from. You're going to be this non-reactive, stable place. Anyway,